the skies would fall after the sixth Joker's card was revealed. But there's still plenty more fun to be had. It's just this way at the Dim Carnival.
Everyone, welcome back to the Dim Carnival. I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
And this week, we might be finishing talking about the Wraith Shangri-La, the Six Jokers card. And it's very sad that we're nearing the end of this journey, but you know what? It had to happen sometime. So this week, we're hoping to talk about Crossing the Bridge, the Raven's Mirror, the Wraith, and the Unveiling. But it's possible that we might end up talking too much about the first three or need more time to talk about the fourth one, so because it's kind of important. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so the first track this week is Crossing the Bridge, or Crossing Thy Bridge, who knows? Crossing the Bridge. And if you haven't listened to it, go ahead and take a listen right now. So I heard this song before the Wraith came out because Crossing the Bridge was one of, I believe, two tracks. It might have been the only track, but they released at least one track before the album came out online. So I actually heard this song before the album came out, and I liked it. But it was a weird track to, I feel like it was kind of a weird track to put out as the first track off the album, because it's like, oh yeah, I can listen to this song, but I have no idea what to expect from the album based on this song. You know?
Yeah.
It's like not very representative of the album as a whole, I feel.
No.
With the exception of tone. Like the tone is correct for the album. But then again, not even there. It's the tone's correct for the last four tracks on the album.
Yeah, it's like an introduction to how it's going to end. Yeah. So I agree with Bill. It's like the introduction of the beginning of the album and the tone it's going to go. They start talking more about the actual character, the Wraith, throughout the rest of it, where the first part of it, he might have been mentioned, but not really like storytelling the way you would get from other characters from Joker cards. And for me, just personally, some of these songs we're going to cover, like I wouldn't normally like these songs based on their tempo and based on how they just kind of sound in the music, but because of it in a collection of the overall album, I absolutely adore them. So I would be like, I don't remember hearing this and before the album. And so I can imagine if I had heard it like Bill had, I'd be very confused and be like, I'm not going to like this because it would be so out of context for me. And I love this song, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm going to go into this song negative. It's just I love this song based in context of what has preceded it. And I feel like this album is a lot like that for me, more so than a lot of other ICP albums. There's not too many songs I can just pick out and say, I like this song because of this. Except for maybe like stuff like The Staleness and a few, but most of these songs I like because they're part of an overarching story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes me think this album is brilliant.
I guess I have so many things. Okay, so yes, if I had heard this song only in anticipation of this album, I would be very concerned. Which I also like this song. And it was really interesting to me how the four tracks that were in our assignment this week, they all kind of have that similar feeling, and work together. And I love what you said, Steve. I never really paid close attention to this album, and going through and listening to it for this project has been really, really enjoyable to me. In fact, this album has jumped way up in ranks for me through this listen. It's just been a real treat. I'll
say this. I feel like this is the first ICP album that we've listened to so far in our listen through. I mean, I think it's true. It's just occurring to me, but I feel like this is the first album to listen to the whole album, and it's like rewarding. You know what I mean? And it's not
like
just because of the
consistently, or not just because of the nostalgia factor, but just like
definitely. And I think that it's not just because of like the message inside of it, but I feel like it's like you listen to this whole album, and especially like because I loved the album already, but like for you. But for me, again, to revisit this album and be like, because going into it, I was like, maybe it's not as good as I remember. But so there's that of like, oh no, it's even better than I remember. But also like to hear the journey that is involved on this album, because I feel like the last 4 songs are basically the final chapter of the book, for lack of a better term. It just feels like, you know, you get this tour of Shangri-La, and if you want to, we can talk about the homie Rob's philosophy about the album.
Yeah, I'd like to get to that eventually. Yeah.
So you take this tour of Shangri-La, and you get like all this fun, happy stuff, and then, you know, ICP usually gets serious at the end, but the end of this one is just talking about, you know, you get all the way up through the fuck song, and then you get talking about like ruminations on like, what if children die, where do they go? And like, then you get like what the Wraith is all about, and then you get the Unveiling. And I just feel like the album is rewarding as a whole to listen to, because it's such an overwhelmingly positive vibe the whole way through, and it just feels like you know, there's definitely some problematic stuff on here, but I would argue that it's like the least problematic of the 6 Joker's cards. I mean, maybe Malenko's not super problematic, but you know, this is arguably the least problematic of the 6 Joker's card, but it's also a hopeful message throughout, a positive message throughout, a joyous message throughout. And I just feel like when you get to the end of this album, like to me, it feels like, you know, hey, that was worth it. I'm not bummed out. I feel better about myself. Yeah. That's just like the word that came to mind when I was thinking about, you know, you guys talking about, you know, listening to this album and getting a closer read on everything and discovering things about it. I just felt like it's rewarding to me.
Yeah. I agree, and I have other reasons, as we'll dive into a song, especially towards the end, that becomes even more rewarding for me. This album made me think about stuff. Like, you know, like, and it's not fair to say that there haven't been songs, ICP songs, that would make you think a little bit about stuff. Usually it's like social things and things, you know, about like how kind of messed up society is and unfair and these things. But like, this made me think about stuff on a spiritual level, which is not my normal takeaway from listening to ICP. And it was a very positive thing. And I'm saving that for later, but I just wanted, but that, like, it's, I didn't expect that from this album back when I listened to it, and it did, and certain songs really stood out to me. But listening to it this time, and really hearing it for the overarching theme, and not disliking anything really on it other than cotton candy and popsicles, like, and even that had its place, and they even did that good. But yeah.
Well, you know what the biggest quandary and makes you think moment is on this album is, what if it's a purgatory door?
What if it is? It could be. You guys ever have the experience of a song that you fully sing along with, but don't realize that you absolutely don't know any of the words?
Sometimes.
So this was a song where I sang words to like the chorus, But I never ever
Never thought
assumed
about what the words were.
I never assumed that the words that I was singing were the actual words. That this was somehow a song about kids and when children
What did
die.
you think it was about?
I don't know. Like, I thought it was about,
Were you singing the right words, but you just weren't comprehending what they were saying, or were you like,
well, no, like the first line of the chorus is, I've seen some children crossing the bridge. And I would sing those words, like, you can understand them, but I didn't think that it was about, that's what it was really about. Because the rest of the verse doesn't really talk about kids at all. It
does.
Does it?
Well, kind of. Well, here, okay, so let's just talk about the track.
That's what we're here for.
I feel like it's a really hell of a banger of a rock ballad. Personally, I think it rules.
Yeah.
But basically, like, I think that this is like ICP at basically their most profound. Like, they're basically talking about living a holy life and like why are religions, why is faith so invested in, the things that you are supposed to do rather than like what's inside your heart, and like what choices does a child make, like where do they go if a kid dies and they don't know fucking anything about like tithing or whatever, like what's going to happen to a kid that dies,
not eating fish on.
Yeah, that's I think the most, one of the most like poignant and succinct things that Jay's ever said is, I never questioned the book, which again is fucking a pretty loaded expression there.
Sure.
I've never questioned the book, but let's say I lived by the book. I never ate meat on Tuesdays. How much bigger would my wings look? Which is funny, and it's also completely accurate because it's like, Steve can back me up here on the whole not saved by works but by faith.
Yes.
But like what are we fucking trying to prove? Of like, I believe in this shit and I try and live a good life. How much better can I get than like being saved and having eternal life? Like, what the fuck am I trying to do beyond that? Like, how like hardcore do I have to be? And like, what does that, like, what in the world could I be trying to accomplish other than that?
That's funny, dude. It makes me think of my mom used to always tell me this when she was growing up, and she would complain to her mother about things being unfair, like when my mom would do the right thing but wouldn't get rewarded for it. My grandmother would tell her that she could look forward to having a more golden chair in heaven.
What?
Well, yeah, well, how it was described in my church was that you get an extra jewel in your crown.
This is terrible.
It seems so heartbreaking to me.
Like
to think
that heaven for so many people is just being rich. Having crowns and jewels, and the heavens are paved with their streets of gold, and like that just seems like, and you get a mansion, and like that just seems like such a awful thing. Like I don't know. It's like the epitome of capitalism. And if anything, capitalism's taught us, whether you think it's the best way to live or not, is it makes people miserable. I mean, we're miserable people. This country's miserable. And so the idea of heaven being just like all this free, like if gold has no worth anymore, it's not that pretty. It's ugly to me personally, but you know what I mean? Like, and so it just feels so empty, and it doesn't feel like there's any spirituality to the idea of there being riches in heaven.
Yeah.
At
least Mormons get their own planet.
Yeah, right. That seems pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to know my favorite representation of the afterlife?
Yes.
It's from the film Defending Your Life.
Yeah, that rules. I love that.
And it actually connects with this song, because in that afterlife, kids automatically move on to the next phase of life.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. And I think a lot of religions do kind of have that idea that kids do get to move on. I remember, again, in our version of Christianity I grew up with is they call it the age of consent. And not consent, dang it.
Jesus.
An age of accountability. That's what it's called. age of accountability. It was like when each person develops differently in their life, and so like I may, like, just because of my temperament and the way I was raised, by 5 years old, I may have understood that the Antichrist is coming, the Rapture is coming, everyone's going to go to hell because of Armageddon. And but my next door neighbor doesn't know that, so my age of consent was much younger than like my next door neighbor who was raised in a different religion or raised with no religion, and so they just had to like go throughout their childhood to a certain level where they're just old enough to know if it's been introduced to.
I don't know. It's just weird to get, you know, to a certain age and be like, oh, the things that I think this other person thinks is completely insane, and there's no accord. There's no, for example, crossing that bridge. So like I think that this is like a really interesting thing that like Violent J and Shaggy are singing about, where it's like Shaggy says, I try to pray every day, but sometimes I don't, you know? And Violent J says like, well, you know, people tell me that I'm going to fucking rot in the devil's intestines. So it's just like, it's a song, a very earnest song, like by these two guys who are like, look, we fucking try, and sometimes we don't, but that doesn't necessarily mean like we're damned to hell. And it doesn't necessarily mean that if we try a little bit harder, we're going to go to heaven any more or go to hell any less, you know, or go to hell anymore, you know, like, look, I'm either fucked or I'm not, and I try and live a good life. So like, what more can I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, because then it makes the actions that you make more genuine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to do things in the name of doing good when you're really looking for a pat on the back. And then it doesn't mean nothing after that.
Guys, there's some sweet guitar licks in this song.
Oh, yeah. It's real rockin' and rollin'.
It's I think the way, so there's like it's like a strumming muted guitar or something like that, that's got a echo on it. And so during the verses, I feel like it's this very open kind of sound, and it's almost like that, like I don't know, like a chant beat.
It almost, the verses to me, and I don't know why, I could be like super off base here. The verses to me have always sounded like kind of like a reggae verse.
I can see
like
that.
Where there's a lot of like reverb and chorus on the guitar, and it also like, it just sounds like what might be in the background of like a Bob Marley verse or something.
I could see that. And then the chorus comes in and it's like fucking shredding.
Sounds like a war machine.
There's some other cool sounds.
I don't know.
Like
I think the verse is very emotional sounding to me.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, you're saying reggae can't be emotional? How dare you?
No, we were talking about the chorus that was raging.
Oh, I see.
But and I agree, it does have this rage to it. But I always still feel it, like, I think because of the way the vocals sound, and what they're saying. Actually, this is like one of this album, more than any other album, what they say really means something and changes the feel of the music, where I don't feel like too many of their songs ever did that. Like, I feel like the last part of these are some songs that I wouldn't normally like, but the words and the feeling behind it makes them good.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a rarity for ICP for me. Usually it makes me laugh, but this is making me do something completely different, and that's what I love about this one so much.
Yeah, I feel like all of this is just ICP at the height of their powers, where it's like they understand their theme, they understand what they're talking about, they made really good music, and they made really good lyrics.
It feels really weird for me to say this, but like I feel like this, I wasn't ready when this album came out. Like I wasn't ready to hear it or listen to it. Like, and that seems really strange.
That makes sense
to say, but
I get it.
I get that. Yeah,
you were ready to accept Jesus into your heart.
That's right.
You weren't the Wraith.
But there's some other interesting sounds going on. I feel like there's this like, it sounds like to me the sound that the Predator makes when he's kind of just like squeaking and growling. And it kind of, I think I think it runs through the entire song. Like it's always just kind of rumbling in the background. And And then there's also like what does he say when he's like I think it's in House of Horrors when he's like like makes that sound. I feel like that sounds in there too. But then if I'm not mistaken, also the guitar, there's like a single note guitar lick that follows the same melody of Jay's voice when he's singing the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has that weird effect on his voice again in this. And so,
Dang it,
bless
sorry.
you.
I tried to mute it and then my finger double tapped as I pulled away. Sorry about that.
Good job, Steve.
I'm going to mute it now because I got to blow my nose.
Thanks for sharing. But what it ultimately ends up making it sounds to me almost like a talk box.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a cool effect, the way that they I don't know, made them run together or whatever.
Yeah. This is a well-produced track. But just in hindsight, it's super weird that they put this track out first.
Like I said, I would have been concerned. I wouldn't have, it doesn't sound anything like anything ICP, you know? Standing alone.
Yeah.
And it also kind of plays into what I was talking about, I think last time. No, it was probably a couple weeks ago. About how ICP can be perceived to play into popular music trends at any given time. So I think maybe Crossing the Bridge might have sounded closest to like what was on the radio at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I could see that.
Yeah.
Also, it was probably it's a pretty clean song, so maybe they were trying to get radio play off of this track.
Yeah, wasn't Creed around at that point?
Oh yeah.
I think I wrote Creed down. Later, different song.
I see some children crossing the creed. That's all.
We ready for the next one?
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about the Raven's Mirror. If you haven't taken a listen to it, go ahead and take a listen right now.
We be doing murder every day. We be good enough to get away. You don't even know a wicked clown hit the door until your melon hit the floor and roll away. Come on. How can I stop myself from murdering your neck? Methadone and Prozac only keep me in check. As soon as it's gone, I'm gonna kill. And that was my last refill. God damn it!
Now this is another song that's sort of like two songs or three.
It's two songs.
Three songs, might be three songs, because the we've been doing murder every day. Oh no, it is. It's just two songs. It's like two songs slapped together because it's like two sides of a mirror.
That's exactly what happens.
A reflexion. So you get like a Shaggy 2-Dope track, and then you get a Violent J track, and I like them both. And the Shaggy track's basically just like he drinks lithium and he doesn't even know what it is. So he drinks it and pisses out a dick phaser. Gets holes in the wall. My favorite line of Shaggy's is he calls back bitch slappers, where he's like, he says, I bitch smacked the judge right out his own courtroom. Then I took the bitch and sentenced myself. Eternal happiness and good health. That's how our social systems work.
Oh, that's so great.
I had either never paid attention to that line before, or I had completely forgot about it. Because on this last listen through it, I heard that I was like, "Oh shit! Oh my god! Oh, so good."
Yeah, I definitely missed that. That's incredible. This is an incredible 2-Dope verse. I wrote, this is a dope 2-Dope verse. I love the chorus too. When they say, you won't even know a wicked clown is at the door until that melon hit the floor and roll away.
Yeah.
And then
so much fun.
And then like the second time when it's like it gets broken up and then becomes the second song. But I also love the it's the Joker.
Yeah, it's
Shangri-La.
Yes, I wrote that down. That's great.
But guys, Jimmy Madrox rapped about something like this.
He sure did.
I never really thought about it.
I didn't either, but thank you, Genius, for giving us a clue, because there's a Genius note for that lyric, where they suggest that it's a reference to I Want to Die. I
don't think it is. I think it's a reference to Bury Me Alive.
Well, maybe either. I think the tone is
because he's talking about being buried alive, and Twisted has a song called Bury Me Alive.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I always thought it was a reference to.
I think you're probably right.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, so that's like the first song happens, and then I don't know, I picture somebody throwing a rock through the mirror, like you hear the glass shatter, and then Jay comes in, totally different beat, like totally different sound and vibe, and then he has another weird effect on his voice. So it's like a completely different song.
It's funny to think that there's actually like 21 songs on this album. But yeah, I like this, and this has another really good chorus with the "Am I sleeping now? I don't know."
Yeah. Well, I like what he says. It's just like, give me a heaven or give me a hell, but he just doesn't want to be there.
Exactly. Well, so in a sense, since he's neither in heaven nor hell, he may have opened up a purgatory door.
That makes sense, because he dies, but then his soul like jumps right back into his body at the last minute, and then he's stuck like a consciousness inside of his dead body that's rotting. That seems like a real bummer, man.
Yeah.
And he didn't
That's
train,
worse than one.
He didn't train with a master kung fu expert, so he didn't have Uma Thurman's ability to punch his way out of his own grave.
Well, I don't think he could move his body anyways.
He should have got the +2 dagger from the Tomb of Horrors D&D.
Well, guys, I have to say the second half of the song I think is okay. I love the first half of the song.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of a better two-note verses. It's great. The music is also really good.
Yeah.
There's like an organ in there. There's like a synth bass that sounds really rad.
I like this song being here too, because like breaking it up the way we have and if we do all 4 songs, like there's like 3 kind of slow, heavy songs. I guess the Unveiling goes back and forth, but this song really like breaks up Crossing the Bridge and the Wraith. And so like I think this song's kind of important, because if you just had like Crossing the Bridge going right into the Wraith, which I thought for the longest time was what it was, that's like just like really 2 heavy songs put together and then going into the Unveiling. And so when I rediscovered that, I forgot I needed to listen to this song in between this song, it's a good breakup of style.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh well. So if we're doing and I don't know whether we ever came to a consensus, but like if we're using the theory that like this album is like a preview of what you can see in Shangri-La, like how does the Raven's Mirror fit into that?
I mean, does it really have to?
No.
And I think that's partly what, well, yeah, I mean, it breaks up the theme as well as the mood. So, like, it's not just a music break, but also just kind of like, it's like throwing one last bitch slap song or one last staleness, or you know what I mean? Like, just something that kind of doesn't really flow with the entirety of it, but it's just what ICP does, and it's awesome, and you love it, and it just makes sense for a reason, but it doesn't really go with what's happening.
Well, and I would say the first half of the song, Shaggy's verse, doesn't go with anything. I think it's just fun. But the second half, the only thing I can think of is there is this, which we'll learn more, I guess, in the next track. This aspect of judgment, and which is in kind of all of the Joker's cards or whatever, all of the entities of the Dark Carnival involved in that in some way. And so this idea of the anticipation of impending judgment, even though in this song it's more about how it doesn't seem to be coming, I feel like that's the only thing that really connects.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So let's talk about the homie Rob's theory about Shangri-La. So he sent us an email, and thank you very much for sending us an email, about how I posited that you can listen to the album as sort of like a preview or like a guide, either on how to get to Shangri-La or as like an example of like, oh, here's all the stuff you can see and do in Shangri-La. But he says that he's thinking about another interpretation. He says he's always listened to the Wraith albums as very specifically about one thing, and we aren't anywhere near that. So he's curious about what we think. He says, I'm normally all in on the mythology stuff. I'm an art major. My focus is on created mythologies because of all the supernatural influence and ICP trickling down to me, also because of Neil Gaiman and wrestling and other sources. But when I listen to the Wraith, I only ever think about the physical world. Shangri-La is a term coined to mean heaven on earth, and the Wraith albums both focus on relationships. Shangri-La is a party album, which includes a literal birthday party. Every track features random shoutouts and guest appearances. JD the Weed Man even gets props. It just sounds like every track is just them hanging out in the studio with their friends. The only track that's different is Hell's Forecast, where it's a story about how all their friends die, and that is their vision of hell being alone. The Hell's Pit album follows that theme. Anyway, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this idea. So he's thinking it's not either of the things we talked about. It's just them experiencing heaven on earth. And experiencing that through the making of this album. And that's borne out in sort of the comments that they've made endlessly around this time where, you know, it's the era of it raining shiny diamonds and like the new face paint and just like everything is going well for them. They're happy about everything. And this is their album that they made about like true happiness. So, I don't know. Let's hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Oh, I fucking loved it, man. It made me light up when I read that. I was like, that's dope. That's so far away from what, like he said, man, so far away from what we were talking about. Not something I had ever considered. And yeah, man, I think it reads. Like, I dig it.
I agree. That was completely eye-opening for me. What I thought was brilliant about it is just how all of us humans have so many different experiences through life and how we end up perceiving and interpreting things. And so, like, especially for Bill and myself, growing up in evangelical style Christian churches, I mean, Bill not as hardcore, but knowing everything was taught, basically everything I was taught, like, it's easy to see this stuff and not be able to not see it outside that lens of, like, where we grew up. So to hear that was brilliant to me, because I'm like, oh my God, that's so obvious now that he says that. And I'm like, and a part of me wanted to be like, I feel kind of stupid, but then I don't, because I couldn't see it that way. And it's awesome. That's why it's so great he shared that, you know?
Yeah. And I think that, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
I think that that's definitely a valid reading and, you know, maybe the intended reading. And I think the only thing that really makes me hesitant about buying into that is that it's the Six Jokers card and they've worked so hard on creating the Dark Carnival mythology that I feel like they probably intended it to be a bit more grandiose than we're just hanging out with our friends and having fun.
So here's what I'm kind of thinking about it or hoping for, because I don't know that I've ever listened to Hell's Pit top to bottom. But his comment of like this Hell's Forecast is kind of this, that Hell's Pit follows that theme. It sort of makes me feel like this is ICP's journey, and that they're sharing their story of their journey, and that Hell's Pit is what happens to them, because they are bad people, and they say that over and over again, that they're not good. And so it would make sense to me that they would experience the possibility or the hopefulness of what's going to come for them on the other side. But the truth is that they're evil. They're wicked clowns, right? They're going to go to hell. And that should make sense then, that that's what the next album is, as if that's their true journey.
Steve?
Well, that was a big thing that Ryan just dropped, and I had a lot of thoughts, and I had a lot of thoughts going in before I was going to hear that. Dang it. Real quick, back to Rob. I feel like what you said, Bill, and Rob's interpretation of it can both be right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because clearly they're telling a fucking story in this album.
Right.
Like, there's a story that exists, and it's a story that can be broken down and interpreted through, you know, symbols and all the different things that we've been doing all this time. So, and I think it was very important for them to let everyone know that it's God. I mean, they really
Spoilers.
put that out there. Sorry. Yes. But so there's still a story, but he's right too, because hearing that, I just remember them, like in Walk Into the Light in the beginning, they talk about, like, I mean, he almost says that in the first verse maybe, where he's just like, you know, like the carnival's been here all along, you know? So they're both, I just think both can be right. And I think, I enjoy doing what we're doing with this to the point that Dave made it where we can do this and interpret it and break it down so much and still see it from our worldviews, you know? So again, I loved hearing that. That was awesome because it's just a way I didn't even think about it. But I also think what we're doing is really fun.
Well,
I think it's also intended because they really put a lot of work into saying what was really important to them at the end.
Well, here's something crazy to think about. What if they had done Hell's Pit first?
It would have made more sense. I think like my biggest takeaway from it is a lot of it feels forced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that they came up with the idea of like, let's do it as two, let's do Heaven and Hell. And I think that the Heaven album came a lot easier to them.
Yeah.
But if they had said, let's do Heaven and Hell, and then been like, let's give them Hell first and make them wait, or let's do Hell first and, you know, I don't know, have the Unveiling at the end of the Hell album or something. I don't know. But it's just interesting to think about, like, what if they had been able to write Hell's Pit and they wanted to put that out first? Like, I think it's possible they may have, like, retained more of their core audience for longer. Like, for me as a fan, like, at that time, I thought that it absolutely lived up to Six Jokers card. Like, I was like, oh yeah, like, worth it, awesome. But for a lot of people, it was like, no, fuck you guys, God, I'm out. Like, they did lose a lot of fans over this album.
Well, you know, and I also feel like, just in speculation mode, I feel like if they made Hell's Pit first, it would have been a better album than the Hell's Pit they made. And
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm happy it happened the way it did, only because of like what I got to personally take away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like story-wise, it would have made more sense for Hell's Pit, because you would have been coming off of Jekyll Brothers, which was already like fire and brimstone kind of stuff anyways, and they were angry.
Like you said, clearly the quality suffered because they had so much fun on Shangri-La, and then they were super bummed out to have to get to that mindset of having to do an entire evil, wicked album and like stay in that headspace and get down to that level. But who knows? All right, so let's talk about The Wraith, the title track off the album, kind of. So let's talk about it. If you haven't listened to it, go ahead and take a listen right now.
Leave them alone. The sheriff's we're alive today, and death is inevitable. He's waiting there, watching through the eyes of a crowd. For sure, yeah.
Guys, The Wraith, he's always uninvited.
Guys, let's finally learn about The Wraith.
Yeah.
We're 26 songs into this album.
Yeah.
I definitely know a little bit about him.
He hangs out in bad neighborhoods. He hovers above blew out traffic lights.
Mm-hmm.
Freeway intersections when the bar is closed. He loves them.
He encourages people to have raw sex.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, freeway intersections when the bar's closed is basically just Prunedale, right? It's a hyper-specific geographical joke. It's a place called Blood Alley on the way.
It's a real easy way to
from Salinas to if you're heading on the US 101 from Salinas to San Jose or Gilroy, you will pass through an unincorporated area called Prunedale, or Prune-tucky to the locals. And,
you'll know when you're there because it's just a bunch of crosses all down the road.
It's actually gone now, but there was a stretch of that freeway called Blood Alley because it was a place where everyone who lived in Prunedale would have to take a left turn across 4 freeway lanes. So for some reason it was like 50 years, and everyone thought that was a fine setup.
Terrifying to drive through.
Oh, it was so insane. Oh,
Well, I'm going to cut all that out
That's
for time.
great.
that's a bummer that has to be cut. But yeah, that's what's funny.
So the Wraith, basically, his whole deal is he takes souls and he sends them to Shangri-La or to Hell's Pit. And he is the six Jokers card. That's it.
I wrote, he's dope and he's a badass.
It's true.
This is what I get from him, that he basically just creeps and sleeps around.
Creeps. He's the beeps, the sweeps, and the creeps.
Yep, and he just picking up souls, right? Like everybody that dies, he grabs them.
He's the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
He is. Oh my God, I was thinking about that. Yes, he is.
I mean, he's just the Grim Reaper. I mean, he just looks like the Grim Reaper, but with horns.
But the thing is, and I was thinking about this really hard today. I was walking down Market Street, and it was funny because I thought about Christmas Carol and Ghost of Christmas Future, because I was wondering, like, how many Grim Reaper characters in stories, whether it's a movie or a book, or like Family
Bill and
Guy
Ted.
or Bill and Ted, like how many times have we seen the Grim Reaper where the Grim Reaper actually is like encouraging people to fuck up so he can take them? And usually I feel like the Grim Reaper is kind of just like neutral and is like, yeah, you're about to fuck up, so I'm here. Whereas like the Wraith is like, yes, have raw sex. Yes, do the dirty heroin needle. You know what I mean? Like, and I just kind of felt like it was like a more intense version of death where it's like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, well, I mean, I guess it's even in here where he has like a contract or he's collecting soul checks.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like the rehab centers and caring mothers always scaring him.
But they totally contradict themselves later in the chorus when they say that he doesn't care whether he sends
Right.
you to heaven or hell. He's just there to take your life.
yeah, but he's excited to watch you die. Is what's creeping me out about it. Where I feel like the other Grim Reapers are just like there because it's their job, and like he's like all, yeah, do it because I want you to die.
He does. He definitely does care.
It's
I know that
also, I mean, it's also colored a little bit by Jay and Shaggy's attitude because he's talking about like he's just gonna sit there and wait for these three little kids, but then they say leave him alone. So,
Yeah, and I agree, and I thought that was interesting too, because there's a great line in this song where they're like talking about like, oh, it's messed up because like now these kids are gonna die, and he's like, but then again, 9 times out of 10, I wish he would take me instead of some of these poor children. So that means there's actually some kids they're okay with dying.
1 out of 10 of those kids is a real asshole.
Yep. So I that was in my notes.
I thought that I'm glad you brought that up, Steve, because I think that is a similar, or I thought there was a connection to Crossing the Bridge.
yeah.
Because at the end when they're relating this whole story, and then I think it's Shaggy at the end is yelling out, "Take me instead."
Yeah.
And so he kind of says that again here.
Yeah.
I also like I do like the chorus, and I do I love
this chorus.
I just love the sentiment. Death is always at a shitty time.
Yep. I love when Jay screams, "Step to the other side."
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it so much. Again, this is one of those songs where I'm saying that, like, this is normally I would not like this music.
And all of this stuff on this album is by far the most ambitious stuff they've ever done.
Yeah.
Like from a melody standpoint, from a dense music standpoint, from a lyrical and thematic standpoint, like they're trying so much stuff on this album, and it's almost all working.
There's another thing that towards the end, where it's like fading out and they're repeating the chorus, and like I think it's a Violent J. He's like saying there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, but no need to fear. And I just thought that was so cool because he keeps repeating it, and it's like you can't run from it, you can't hide from it, but there's no reason to be afraid of it. And I thought that was super awesome. And it's just like in the background at the end as the song's fading out.
I want to mention something to you guys and see what you think about it. Speaking of the entities that that are the 6 Joker's cards.
Mhm.
I felt like, I continue to feel like each one sort of, even though they don't, I could say, like, it's fair criticism to say that these aren't super flushed out characters in any sense, of any of the 6, but I felt like from Carnival of Carnage up through Jekyll Brothers, they delved deeper and deeper into explaining the character of each of those Joker's cards. Carnival of Carnage is not a person. It's just a thing, right? Ringmaster has a really important job, but we don't really know that much about what he thinks about shit. Riddlebox is now involved in some decision making. And then Jekyll, or Great Malenko, he's got a whole fucking backstory. We know where he comes from. We know all this different stuff about him. And then Jekyll Brothers is 2 characters, and we get that same kind of, they're in that decision making. I don't know, maybe you could say that that's not as much development or whatever. The Wraith is like very superficial, right? Like, we don't really get too much about him. Like, he just kind of has this role to play again. So I always kind of felt like it's a little bit of a step down.
Well, he's also just not a very complex character. He's the embodiment of
That's
death.
what I'm saying. He's just not complex.
Yeah.
Which is not to say he's not interesting, because I want to say right now that I feel like right now this character, the Wraith, is my favorite of the 6 Joker's cards.
Nice. Just in terms of concept?
Yeah, just everything about him. I've always dug like the style. I've always thought it was fresh, but I just going through and experiencing this album, kind of like how Steve was mentioning before, and like really kind of letting myself open up to it emotionally and listen to the whole story or whatever. I liked it more and more and more. And so now I'm super hyped about this album, and I really like this character too, even though it's a little bit, more shallow of a character. I still really, really like it. And I don't know if you guys checked out these new shirts on the ICP store online, the Blacked Out series.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they have the 6 Joker's cards on a black on black t-shirts available on the ICP ones. And yeah, and after this week when I was listening, I was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to pick one up, but now I'm definitely going to get the Wraith.
Wraith.
Nice.
Rock and roll. Shall we move on to the final track on the album?
Well, this is it.
Time to go. All right. If you haven't listened to the Unveiling, what are you doing? But go ahead and take a listen right now.
It ain't about making a buck. Don't buy our fucking action figures, bitch. I don't give a fuck. It ain't about Violent J or Shaggy the Butterfly or 17. When we speak of Shangri-La, what you think we mean? Truth is we follow God. We've always been behind him. The carnival has got in May. Oh, juggalos find us. May the juggalos find us. May the juggalos find us.
So guys, let's give a little bit of dive into a little bit of backstory here. We haven't really talked about this a whole bunch. We've sort of just alluded to it. We never really explicitly talked about it, but the whole time that there was the concept of 6, there are 6 Joker's cards, and when the 6th one drops, they basically said, like, we'll tell you all the secret. We'll tell you all the truth about the Dark Carnival and what it is and what that means when the 6 Joker's card comes out. So that was what everyone was looking forward to this album for. Everyone was like waiting, like, what's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? What's they gonna say? And I know Ryan was sort of concerned that it might be like a call to mass suicide or something.
Yeah.
Right? You were concerned that
oh man,
there was
I
some
thought
sort
it could
of
be
very wicked thing coming.
Could be.
Mm-hmm. So, Steve and I, in the years leading up to the 6 Joker's card coming out, we here and there would be like, it kind of sounds like they're talking about Jesus in a lot of these songs.
Yeah.
And when this album came out and the Unveiling was the final song, there were a lot of people who skipped right to it. I didn't. I waited. I listened to the whole album. And I went to the last album. I got to the last track when I got to the last track.
Same.
But there were a lot of juggalos who were really pissed off when this album came out and they heard the Unveiling And a lot of people stopped being juggalos because they felt like they were lied to or misled, or they felt like, oh, I thought that these were really wicked clowns, but they just are Bible thumpers. And further, as a result of this track, that began a talking point that has persisted to this day of people who claim or talk about like the ICP is a Christian band. And, you know, I talked about how they've done a lot of interviews recently, and like one of the interviews I watched for, you know, their Fred Fury press tour, the interview asked them, like, you know, what do you say to people who claim that you guys are a evangelical, you know, group? And they laughed it off. They're like, I don't know where fucking people got that. Like, we use the word God. We don't say like Jesus. We've always believed in a higher power, and we've never shied away from the fact that we believe in a higher power. Like, that's basically all the Dark Carnival's about. But, you know, like, whatever higher power you want to believe in, that's fine. We just, you know, that was our point of, like, you know, try and do good, try and live a good life. But, like, we're not, like, hardcore Christians or anything. We're not a Christian band. But they've gotten tarred with that, you know, ever since this album came out. Like, I see the joke to this day of, like, oh, you know, ICP is like a Christian band, right? So, like, a lot of people assumed that they were trying to, like, Trojan horse, like, oh, you've been listening to a Christian band this whole time. And other people just thought it was, like, lame. This was the result. But
well, we just need everyone to listen to that one episode that we had a while back where I went off saying that they were not an evangelical Christian band based on evangelical Christian standards.
Oh, sure, for sure.
But episode, that was one of the Malenko episodes, I think.
But people who get upset about oh, they're a Christian band, they don't know about Christianity very much.
Yeah.
They have a narrow.
No, I remember having that same debate with a colleague at one point at work. I'm just like, that's not evangelical. Stop saying that word. You don't know what it means.
Get on my couch.
Saying that you believe in God doesn't mean you're evangelical.
Yeah.
So I remember when I heard this song, I specifically remember riding around in my Ford Ranger, listening to this track, and I was a little bit annoyed by it. And the reason I was annoyed, was specifically the line where they say, "We're not sorry if we tricked you."
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Because I wasn't surprised at all. It was the same, you know, I feel like that was the prevailing theory at the time, was that it was going to be about God, not specifically Jesus or Christianity. I felt that's the part that I would have been really confused about, is if they had come out and been like, yeah, we're Christians. I'm like, what, dude? No, that just don't work.
No, I would have believed they would have came out saying we're Shiva-ists before they'd say they're Christians.
Right. But it totally made sense to me, and it's like, it's not that controversial, you know?
No, it's really not.
It's the least controversial thing you can do. Is that why you were upset? Because it wasn't controversial in any way?
Yeah. Because they didn't tell everyone to jump off a building.
Well, yeah. Well, no. I wasn't. That's not what I was.
Like, I'm so upset they're not telling me to crash this truck right now. I'll fucking die.
I mean, I probably would have liked that a lot more, but no. Not to say that I was hoping that it was something that was controversial, but just that them saying, like, sorry if we tricked you. Like, no, just embrace it. Like, you say right here that it's been in little hints and messages the whole time.
You said we're not sorry if we tricked you.
We're not sorry, yeah.
Right. I'm sorry.
They don't give a fuck.
Okay.
So they did embrace it.
They don't care what you think about it, Ryan. Yeah. They just told you that, and you're like crying
Don't take this out of the don't take this out of the podcast. How dare you?
I'm not.
What's the historical record over here? I know when you mumble, when you have the mumbles and grumbles, it means you're gonna.
Listen. They're not sorry. They're not sorry if they tricked me. I wouldn't expect them to be sorry either. But it's the suggestion that we were tricked in any way that I'm annoyed by.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Like, who would be?
Right.
But a lot of people were.
I know, man. They lost a lot of fans, including me. I never bought another ICP record after this.
But now look at you. Now you host a successful ICP podcast.
Successful.
Yeah. We got a loyal 69
Nice.
listener base. Nah, dude, like I said, I wasn't ready for it, man. But I loved this song, and I think I
Even though you were
back when
annoyed
it came
by
out, I loved the staleness, and I always knew that was my favorite song on the record.
Mm.
But I instantly loved, and I love everything about this song and what they do, naming all the Joker's cards at the top with the bell toll going with it. Everything that Jay says and like how he introduces it, how they just have there's this instant love, right? When he's like, "Time's up, brother."
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, everybody's time's up. You know, this shit's fucking over, dude.
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah. And as we get into it, the music and all the references and all of that, so good.
Yeah.
I love every aspect of this song. Starting with the Wraith. Like just this resignation. It's just like the whole like, well, time's up. We fucked around long enough on this album. Now it's time to fucking get down to brass tacks and tell you about our Lord.
Do you have a minute to hear about our Lord and Savior?
Heard the good news?
I think that this track, in addition to really displaying just being a great historical record of everything that's happened to them up to this point, it really shows how much they've improved as artists and as lyricists. And you know, Jay does a little styling.
Yeah, he does
in his verse, you know, and that's some legit styling. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And he's also spitting some like real truth too.
Yeah.
He's like, some ninjas don't want to get with you, they're quick to forget you without the hatchet and get out. It's like, well, shit. You know, he's saying like, if you have a problem with it, then you don't roll with us.
Yeah.
Like, damn, man.
Yeah. So good.
So much about this song is fantastic.
Yeah, this song is like undeniably rad.
I mean, it's got
His
like
whole
every
attitude
chant
is
you
so
ever
good.
want. It's got them all. I mean,
it's like everything you could possibly want in an ICP song.
Yeah, it's like the perfect crescendo. You know, it's just And it was funny when I first listened to this. I had just started dating this young lady, and I made her sit with me and listen to the entire album, and I'd never heard it, and I didn't talk the entire album. We sat there to the entire album,
and you never heard from her again.
I mean, like
I heard she has a lot of cool murals in Salinas now.
I already told
No,
dude, you told this exact same story.
I don't remember. It's new to me.
And I just remember just like it was just so weird listening to it with her and then like being blown with the way this all went and everything and how much I loved it. And then like there's just like this person there with me that had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah, like yeah. Look, I gotta go.
Oh, there isn't a single woman that I've dated who would sit through this album.
Yeah, you got very lucky there, Steve.
Yeah,
she was a very nice person.
I love all my exes, but
yeah, she was a very nice person.
I just feel like Violent J's attitude through the whole thing is so great, and you know, I don't really buy some of these lines.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, ultimately, I understand that I'm sure he's correct, but when he's like, you know, it's not about the fan club, it's not about making a buck, don't buy our action figures, we don't give a fuck. Like, yeah. I love that line.
Yeah. I also I love that whole like that there's such a long, steady build up to the carnival is God and may all juggalos find him. Mm-hmm. Like he just ramps up for like a solid minute. Like, and it's all so good. Like all we're doing is pointing shit out to you. We in this together.
Yeah.
And like the who invented juggalos and juggalettes and fucking Fago showers? What about that feeling you get when you're bumping our shit? Who's behind these juggalo powers? God, it's also good. You do get a good. See, that's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying this album is rewarding, because you get a good feeling when you bump this album that you don't always get when you listen to other ICP albums. I feel.
I love you get Legs Diamond. Not too much Legs Diamond on this record, but he comes back and is shouting out Juggalos. But yeah, like Steve already mentioned, so many good. So the whole outro is like several minutes of them repeating the "We're not sorry if we tricked you," the "Carnival will carry on," with intercutting clips from or segments from other ICP songs of like all every other Joker.
Yeah, that was the part that like really got me when I was listening to this track for the first time. I was like, oh, fucking all these callbacks, so good. So good.
Man. So yeah, I was hoping we could run down because there's so many.
Yeah.
So many that they do.
Do it.
I think the first one.
Come see the show. That was the first one, right?
Right.
Come see the show.
Show must go on.
Top show. Well, yeah. And then
the Riddlebox.
Juggler.
Hell yeah, man.
Your favorite
homie.
song.
Right.
Still?
Well, I think it's got to be Wagon Wagon now. Wagon Wagon's so rad.
You're like, I've mixed it up and I've decided to have a good song be my favorite ICP song.
How dare you?
Fucking got him.
Right. Next one is Pass Me By, I think. Greg Malenko.
Yeah. And then, of all things, this is our world. Dirtball.
Dirtball, yeah. I was really surprised by that one at the time.
I definitely didn't know that song at the time.
Oh, really?
Well, if I did, I didn't like own an album with that song on it.
How dare you? You should have bought it when you saw him on tour. When I did. There's so many. We keep going back in time. The next one is Fuck Off. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's really wonderful is like immediately after being like, it's all about God. I hope you find God. It's suck my nuts, bitch. Fuck.
Yep. Keeping it real.
You don't find God, suck my nuts.
I'd rather grab my dick and tell your mom to fuck off.
And then we got Inner City Posse, got the dog beats.
Yep. They do a quick rapid fire here. Dog beats, 3 rings. Yep.
Merry-go-round.
And then merry-go-round. Yeah, man. And then it's I don't know. We've been saying it's the ringmaster voice, but they called it the ringleader voice. Jay with his high pitched voice comes in to close the show. Tell us to get the fuck out. Show's over. But I love when he says, "Always remember to fuck off."
So basically this album ends the exact same way that Cheers ends.
Yep. Yeah. We're closed. Gotta leave.
Sorry, we're closed. Good.
And then there's like a piano that goes out to close the song too. This music fades away with the little piano. Mm-hmm. Reminded me of a Faith No More track.
Mm. Oh yeah. The one Faith No More track? Epic?
The only one I know.
It's it. All right.
But I was noticing that there's a lot of people that are credited on this track on the Wikipedia page. ICP, Lil Pig, who is the drummer for...
Yeah, for Zugga.
So that, yeah, there's... Oh, I made that note. Yeah, there's live drums on this track, too.
It's true.
Really good. Anybody Killa, Legs Diamond, Sin, Mike P, and Blaze the Dead Homie. Apparently they must be doing the gang vocals and stuff.
Yeah, that's what this is in the liner notes here.
Oh, so I think that's the only... Oh, okay, apparently Legs was also on Raven's Mirror. I didn't catch him on that one.
So after the lyrics of the Unveiling in the booklet, it says dedicated to the butterfly, as always said. And he actually tells the whole story of the butterfly for the first time in the lyrics here.
Right. I remember reading that.
Yeah. Which is a very, very sad but beautiful story, and also like really exemplifies the childlike whimsy and wonder that like has always defined Violent J.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm gonna make it up to this fucking butterfly I caught when I was a 7-year-old someday. Which is, what a sentiment.
Right. So overall, man, just really, really stoked at having listened to this record. I just really enjoyed it from top to bottom.
T to B.
Yep. Toe to tip. It's a Bart.
It's a Bart. Yeah. really stoked at how it holds up. Like, probably holds up better than any ICP album that we've listened to thus far. That might not be true, but it's just so enjoyable throughout, and very little of it is a bummer to listen to. There's some slurs on it that we wish weren't there, some other stuff that's happening, but overall, nothing but positive messages here.
It got 2 stars in Rolling Stone.
Hey, what do you know?
You got any final thoughts, Steve? What do you think about the Wraith, Shangri-La?
About that.
No, again, I agree. I enjoyed it more this time through, and just was able to experience it more, and I had a lot of fun listening to it.
Be able to live in the moment, be a little mindful.
Yeah, just go with it, flow.
All right, Ryan, final thoughts, or have you said it all?
I think that's it, man. Time's up.
Time's up. Gotta go. Well, we want to hear your thoughts about the Six Jokers card, how you felt at the time, how it lived up. Maybe you're some of the people who are listening to this shit for the first time ever as we help guide you through this journey. And wicked clowns,
shit.
huh? All right. And if so, if you have any thoughts at all on the Wraith Shangri-La, we would love to hear them. So drop us a line at dimcarnival@gmail.com. Otherwise, let's go ahead and give you your assignment for next week. Now, here's a little word of warning, guys. The next couple weeks, they might be a little bit shorter episodes than you're used to, which is just because we got a few things coming up that we're not entirely sure that we're going to have a lot to say, but we will have episodes about them. So buckle up for that. The next episode, we will be talking about Cracked Tiles, which is Zug Island's debut album. And I'm really interested to listen to that for the first time, and hopefully these guys are too. But go ahead and listen to that. It's on Spotify. It's readily available, so take a listen to that. And we will talk to you next week. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at dimcarnival. You can email us dimcarnival@gmail.com. You can follow me on all social media at Sundown Motel. And until next time, I'm Bill.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Ryan.
Bizarre. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong. I hope that at some point we get a Cask of Amontillado ICP song where Violent J hides Fago in a wall and then seals Shaggy in there.
We should email him about that. I think it's a good idea.
Dear sirs.
Dear sir.
I notice you have very few works inspired by Poe, except for The Raven's Mirror.